Welcome back. We're now going to take a look at how we can add forms and inputs to our websites. Forms are something which we've probably all used in the past. These are input fields which we can add our information, such as our name, our email address, and also maybe a text area for the message. We can then click submit and send this information back to the website owner. So let's see how we can add these to our project. Let's go down below the table, and inside of here we can open up the form element. This is a wrapper for all of our inputs which we add inside. One of the most basic types of inputs we use is the input with the type of text. And as you may have guessed, this is simply an input where the user can type in some text into a box. It doesn't have a closing tag. Instead, if we give that a save and then refresh, this will just display a standard box on the screen which we can type into. We can also type in some text before to act as a label. So let's say name, and refresh, and there's the name label on the left hand side. We can also do this more semantic or more descriptive by surrounding this name text in a label. And then we can cut our text and place this in between, just like that. So now we have a label and also an input, but we have no way currently of linking these two elements together. The browser doesn't know that this label is for this input. Therefore, if we were to go over to the browser and click on this text here, it doesn't activate this text box. To link these together, we can add a for attribute in the label. So let's just say name, and then we'll link this by adding an ID with the same name. So make sure this for attribute and this ID attribute match. And now if we go over to the browser and click on this label, this now activates the text box for the user to type into. Another common type of input is an email. So let's create our label again for email. And let's add the for attribute too. And this name is up to us, but I'm going to call this email. Add an input with the type, this time of email. And also the ID too, so this links up with the label. And this again must match this for attribute. Save that, and then reload, and there's our name and email. If we want these to appear on their own separate lines, rather than in line, which they currently are, we can surround each section inside of a div, which is a block level element, meaning that the contents will appear on the next line below. So cut this out, paste this in, and do the same for the second one. So cut these two items out and paste them in the second input, just like that. Now with a refresh, these are now on their own separate lines. There's so many more input types we can use, such as color, which gives us a color picker on the screen. We can also have number, which restricts the user input to be just a number, rather than any text characters. Another common one is a text area. So let's add a new div below this, and the text area. Text area is different from input, because rather than having one input box, which is just basically one line, a text area can have multiple rows and columns to add more data. It also has a closing tag here too, and inside we can add some default text, such as add your message here, just like this. Over to the browser and then reload. So there's our text area at the bottom. If we click on this, we can override this text with any message that we want to add. We also will see in the bottom corner a little section where we can click and drag to make this text area bigger and smaller. Or we can set the default size by adding some attributes to this text area, such as the number of rows, So let's say rows equal to 10 and columns of 40. And there we go. So now we have a 10 by 30 text area on the screen. Another common input is the select element. So let's add a div which surrounds this. And then this has the select element as the wrapper. Inside of here we can add lots of different options that we want to add, and these will appear like a drop down list. So if this was for the subject of our message, we could just say something like returns, and then a second option, and this could be more info. The third one, we could say payments, and we could go on as many times as we want. We can also add a value inside of these options, and the value is the data which will be sent to the server if this form is submitted, whereas the text in the middle is just simply some information for the user. So this could be returns, and we could go on and add more values to the rest too. But let's save and let's see how this looks in the browser. Okay, so if we click on this select, we now have a returns, more info, and payment options. Finally, once we have a form on the screen, we also want to have a submit button too. So let's wrap this in a div. So this is also on its own line. We could use a button with the type of submit, but I'm going to use the input and the type of submit. And then give that a save, reload, and there's our submit button at the bottom of the form. So this is an overview of some of the most common input types we can use for our form. And if you want to take a look at some more, just do a quick Google search for HTML inputs, and you'll come across lots of different options such as passwords, colors, radio buttons, checkboxes, and even inputs for picking the date. So this is how we add forms and inputs to our HTML files. Thank you, and I'll see you next time.